Vivid verses.
We were at the St. Regis for the regional mixer. You know the room. Vaulted ceilings, bad acoustics, and 200 people wearing suits that cost more than their first cars, all pretending they aren't looking for a better offer than the one they currently have. The air conditioning was struggling against the body heat, and the noise floor was sitting at about 80 decibels. It's a hostile environment for communication, designed to filter out anyone who lacks the stamina to project. I wasn't there to drink warm Chardonnay or trade meaningless pleasantries about the humidity. I was there to secure the Holbrook account. That requires a specific operational tempo. In a room like that, you're either the gravity or you're the debris. If you don't control the immediate 6 feet of space around you, you get swallowed by the noise. I spent 3 hours strictly in performance mode. I had to be on. I had to be sharp. Paige was there the whole time. The strategy was explicit. We discussed it in the elevator on the way up, passing the 20th floor. I told her, "This is a hunting trip, not a date." She plays the supportive partner, the soft power asset. Her job is to fill the dead air if I have to step away to shake a hand, to laugh at the right decibel level to signal engagement, and to look like she belongs in a tax bracket that doesn't worry about the price of gas. It's a low-barrier role. It requires basic social awareness and the ability to stand in heels for 180 minutes. Instead, she stood by my left elbow like a security detail that hadn't been paid in 6 weeks. I was working a circle of 5. 3 VPs, 1 consultant, and Sylvia Vance. Sylvia is the target. She's 55, heads up procurement for the Western region, and controls a $40 million budget. She's the gatekeeper. If Sylvia likes you, you get the meeting. If she doesn't, your emails go into the digital incinerator. Standing next to Sylvia was Davis from the rival firm, a shark in a pinstripe suit who was waiting for me to stumble so he could slide in and undercut my bid. I was executing the sailing story. It's a calculated narrative I use for this specific demographic. It's the one about the mast snapping off of Newport during a squall. It isn't just an anecdote. It's a resume in narrative form. It demonstrates risk management, grace under pressure, and financial solvency without explicitly stating any of those things. It signals that I have hobbies that require disposable income and the constitution to handle crisis. I was hitting the beats perfectly. I made eye contact with the consultant, nodded to the VPs, and kept the focus on Sylvia. I leaned in, modulating my voice, so they had to lean in too. It creates intimacy in a crowded room. It forces a subconscious bond. So the boom is swinging loose, I told them, keeping my hands open, palms up, inviting them into the chaos. And the captain is shouting about the rigging. Now, most people freeze. They look at the problem. I don't look at the problem. I look at the solution. I grabbed the utility knife. Sylvia was nodding. I had her. Her pupils were dilated. She was mirroring my posture. Davis looked annoyed. He knew I was winning the floor. The connection was made. Then I felt it. The drag. Paige shifted her weight. She sighed. It wasn't a loud sigh, but in the microclimate of a conversation circle, it was a thunderclap. She pulled her phone out of her clutch. The screen lit up, casting a corpse blue pallor on her chin. She wasn't checking a text. She was scrolling Instagram. Disengaging. Sylvia's eyes flicked to Paige, then back to me. The spell broke. The momentum faltered. Davis smirked. He saw the weakness. I had to burn extra social capital just to bring the energy back up, to make a joke about the phone to bridge the gap, to smooth over the fact that my partner found the people capable of making my career to be boring. I had to work twice as hard to get back to 0. I wrapped up the circle at 10:15 p.m. I had 3 business cards that actually mattered and a verbal agreement for a follow-up coffee with Sylvia. The mission was accomplished despite the handicap. I signaled to Paige that we were extracting. She didn't nod. She just turned and started walking toward the exit before I'd even finished shaking hand with Davis. We walked to the valet stand. The air outside was humid, heavy with the smell of exhaust and expensive cologne. I handed the ticket to the attendant. Paige stood 5 feet away from me, staring at the pavement, arms crossed over her chest. It's a defensive posture. It signals to everyone watching, the valet, the doorman, the colleagues leaving behind us, that there is a fracture in the unit. It's unprofessional. It creates gossip, and gossip dilutes authority. I watched the valet run for the car. I used the time to breathe, to switch gears from hunter to manager. I knew the ride home was going to be a debriefing, but I didn't realize yet that it was going to be a termination interview. I checked my pulse. Steady. The Audi pulled up. Black, polished, efficient. I tipped the valet a 20, not because he was fast, but because people are watching. We got in. The door sealed with that heavy, vacuum-tight thud that German engineers spend millions perfecting. The sound of the city cut out instantly. That's when the silence got heavy. It wasn't the silence of two people tired from a long night of work. It was the silence of a weapon being loaded. I pulled out onto 4th Street, checking the mirrors, calculating the route back to her place. I knew the conversation was coming. I just needed to see which angle of attack she would choose. I didn't turn the radio on. I needed to hear the engine, and I needed to hear her breathing pattern. It was shallow, rapid. She was winding herself up. She waited until we hit the first red light at the intersection of Grand and Main. "You were so loud back there," she said. I didn't look at her. I watched across traffic. A delivery truck was blocking the box, forcing a taxi to swerve. I noted the inefficiency. I was projecting. It's a loud room with bad sound dampening. If you whisper, you look weak. It's honestly pathetic how much you need everyone to look at you, she said. Her voice had that sharp, brittle quality that suggests she'd been rehearsing the line since the appetizers. You were basically drooling over that woman in the red dress while you told that story. It was embarrassing. I analyzed the statement while I waited for the light. The woman in the red dress was Sylvia Vance. The drooling was me leaning in to hear her over the jazz band because she speaks softly and I needed to hear every word she said about her quarterly projections. I kept the car smooth, accelerating as the light turned green. I didn't defend myself. Defense implies there's validity to the accusation. There wasn't. Sylvia Vance controls the Holbrook budget, I said. I was ensuring she remembers my name tomorrow morning when I send the follow-up email. That interaction pays the lease on this car. It pays for the dinners we go to. It's not flirting, Paige. It's procurement. Paige didn't want context. She didn't care about the ROI of the conversation. She wanted contrition. She shifted in her seat, the leather creaking, turning fully toward me. I could feel her staring at the side of my face, looking for a twitch, a grimace, anything she could latch onto to prove she had drawn blood. If you actually loved me, you wouldn't act like that, she said. There it was. The leverage play. She was attempting to equate my professional competence with a lack of romantic commitment. It's a false equivalency, a logical fallacy used to trap the other person into proving a negative. You know, it makes me uncomfortable, she continued, her voice rising in pitch. Yet you prioritize your ego over my feelings. I need you to promise me you'll tone it down and stop being so friendly with everyone, or I don't know if I can trust you. I merged onto the avenue. The road was clear. I had about 4 minutes until we reached her building. I used 10 seconds of that to run the projection. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was a pattern. 3 months ago at the firm's Christmas dinner, she sulked because I spent 20 minutes talking to the managing partner about golf. She accused me of ignoring her and sat at the table scrolling through her phone, embarrassing me in front of the executive committee. Last month at the brunch with my college friends, she made a scene because I was recounting a trip to Tokyo, and she felt I wasn't including her enough in the narrative. She views my ability to integrate into a social hierarchy not as a skill, but as a threat to her ownership of my attention. She needs me to be small so she can feel big enough to contain me. She operates on a scarcity mindset. She believes that attention given to others is attention stolen from her. I ran the scenarios. Option A, I apologize. I tell her I didn't mean to make her feel ignored. Result, I validate her premise that my social skills are a form of infidelity. She learns that pouting yields resources. The behavior reinforces itself. Option B, I promise to tone it down. Result, I agree to handicap my career to soothe her anxiety. I become less effective in my field to avoid conflict at home. I lose the Holbrook account because I was too busy holding her hand to close the deal. I eventually resent her, leading to a messy breakup in 6 months. Option C, I reassure her. Result, we repeat this cycle every time I successfully work a room. I spend the drive home from every future event de-escalating a crisis that she manufactured. The cost of maintenance on this relationship had just exceeded the value of the asset. I drove calmly. I didn't grip the wheel any tighter. My heart rate didn't spike. I glanced at her. I didn't see a girlfriend. I saw a variable that could no longer be solved for. I saw a sunk cost. I was networking, Paige, I said. I kept the tone flat, clinical. I wanted the words to hang in the air without any emotional interference. My charisma is an asset to my career and my life. It is a tool I have sharpened for 10 years. I will not dim my light just to make your shadow feel less consuming. I heard her intake a breath. She wasn't expecting that. She was expecting the usual back and forth where I explain myself. She rejects the explanation, and I eventually offer a compromise to buy peace. You are asking me to amputate parts of my personality to feed a bottomless pit of your own insecurity, I told her. I won't do that. If you interpret basic manners and social success as a threat to you, that is a reflection of your character, not mine. The car was quiet again, but the quality of the silence had shifted. The air left the room. She was stunned. The logic was too cold, too angular for her to grab onto. She couldn't fight it because it wasn't an attack. It was a diagnosis. She had handed me an ultimatum, and I had rejected the premise entirely. Then came the tears. She burst into them, sobbing, hands covering her face, shoulders shaking. It's a tactile response. In the past, this was the circuit breaker. The tears come. I feel like a monster. I pull over. I hug her. We go get late-night food, and nothing changes. It's a reset button that allows her to avoid accountability for the initial aggression. It is a manipulation tactic, conscious or not. I looked at the dashboard clock. 11:14 p.m. I didn't reach for her hand. I didn't offer a tissue. I evaluated the route. We were 2 blocks away. I noted the construction on the left, the way the streetlights reflected on the hood. I stayed in the moment. I pulled the car over. We were right in front of her apartment complex, a brick building with a well-lit awning. I put the car in park. I hit the unlock button. The sound of the locks disengaging was the loudest thing in the night. It sounded like a gavel. She stopped crying for a second, looking up, confused. Her mascara was smeared. She was waiting for the softening. She was waiting for me to lean across the console and tell her she was crazy, but I loved her anyway. She was waiting for the script she knew. I've assessed the trajectory of this conversation, I said. I turned in my seat to face her. I looked her in the eye. I didn't hate her. I didn't feel any malice. I just knew I couldn't carry the weight anymore. It's simple physics. You can't climb if you're tethered to something that refuses to move. You view my strengths as threats, I said. That makes you a liability to my future, not a partner in it. She froze. The tears were still on her face, but the mechanism behind them had stopped. She realized this wasn't a negotiation. This was a closing statement. We're done, I said. You should go inside. She sat there for another 10 seconds. She looked at me, then at the door, then back at me. She wanted to scream. She wanted to make a scene. She wanted to force a reaction that would drag me back into the emotional mud with her so we could wrestle in it. She wanted me to yell so she could call me abusive. She wanted me to apologize so she could call me weak. But I gave her nothing, just a weight. My hands were on my lap. My face was neutral. I was already gone. She opened the door. The cold air rushed in, cutting through the climate-controlled stillness. She got out, slammed the door with everything she had, and walked toward the lobby without looking back. I waited until she was through the glass doors. It's a security protocol. You don't leave someone on the street at night, regardless of the status of the relationship. I watched her fumble with her keys, her shoulders hunched. It was a pathetic image, but not one I was responsible for fixing anymore. Once she was inside, I put the car in drive. I merged back into traffic. The car felt lighter. The cabin was quiet, but it was a clean silence now. I checked the rearview mirror. The street was empty. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Then again. Then a third time. I picked it up at the next red light. 3 texts from Paige. 11:18 p.m. Are you serious? 11:19 p.m. You're just going to drive away? 11:19 p.m. Pick up the phone, Victor. We need to talk about this. I didn't open them. I didn't delete them. I just put the phone face down. There is nothing to talk about. The terms of the deal were violated. The contract is void. I turned up the climate control 2 degrees. I merged onto the highway, heading north toward my place. The city lights were blurring past on the right. I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in months. I started thinking about the logistics of the separation. I ran the inventory in my head. I have a few things at her place: a toothbrush, a phone charger, a couple of dress shirts I left after the gala last month. Write-offs. The replacement cost is less than the cost of re-engaging. She is nothing at my place. I kept it that way intentionally. Always maintain a perimeter. If you don't give someone a key, you don't have to change the locks. I thought about the social fallout. Her friends would paint me as the villain. They'd say I was cold, heartless, arrogant. They wouldn't mention the 3 years I spent trying to build her up, trying to get her to see herself as something other than a victim. They wouldn't mention the times I prepped her for job interviews, the times I smoothed over her conflicts with her family, the times I paid off her credit card debt so she could start fresh. They would just see the result, me driving away. That's fine. I don't need their approval. I need my time back. I pulled into my garage at 11:45 p.m. The silence of my apartment was different from the car. It was static controlled. I took off my jacket, hung it up. I poured a glass of water. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The screen glowed white in the dark room. I pulled up my email client. I found a draft I had started earlier in the day for Sylvia Vance. It was generic weak. I deleted it. I needed to strike while the iron was hot, while the sailing story was still fresh in her mind. Subject: great meeting you/Holbrook discussion. Dear Sylvia, it was a pleasure connecting at the mixer tonight. I appreciated your insights on the regional procurement challenges, particularly regarding the Western distribution hubs. I'd love to continue the conversation we started regarding the Q3 projections. I have some ideas on how we can streamline that supply chain elasticity we discussed. Are you available for coffee this Tuesday or Wednesday morning? Best regards, Victor. I read it over. Concise, professional, action-oriented, no fluff. I hit send. I closed the laptop. I checked my phone one last time. 7 more texts. 2 missed calls. 1 voicemail. I didn't listen to it. I went into the settings. Block caller. It wasn't cruelty. It was a boundary. If I let her speak, she would try to negotiate. She would promise change. And for a week, maybe 2, she would change. Then the resentment would build, the comments would start, and we'd be back in the car. Blocking her was the only way to ensure the decision remained final. I put the phone on the charger. I went to the window and looked out at the city. It was still moving, still grinding. Millions of people running their own little simulations, trying to optimize their own lives. I slept better that night than I had in a year. The next morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. No alarm needed. The sun was coming through the blinds. The apartment was exactly as I had left it. No mess. No passive-aggressive notes. No emotional residue. I made coffee. Black. I went for a run. The air was crisp. I ran 6 miles, pacing myself, monitoring my breathing. Every step felt efficient. I thought about the week ahead. I had the Holbrook pitch, the quarterly review, and a dinner with the partners. My calendar was full, but my mind was clear. When I got back, I checked my email. From Sylvia Vance. Subject: Great meeting you / Holbrook discussion. Sent 7:15 a.m. Victor, good to hear from you. You made quite an impression last night. Tuesday at 9 works for me. Let's meet at the cafe in the lobby. And bring that energy. Sylvia. I smiled. Not a big smile. Just a confirmation. I was right. If I had stayed in the car, if I had apologized to Paige, if I'd promised to be less loud, I would have woken up drained. I would have spent the morning nursing her ego instead of building my future. I might have sent that email late, or with the wrong tone, distracted by the ongoing crisis in my living room. I would have missed the window with Sylvia. But I didn't. I cut the dead weight. And because of that, I was lighter. I was faster. I showered, put on a fresh suit, navy, crisp white shirt. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look like a man who had just ended a relationship. I looked like a man who was ready to work. I walked out the door. The world doesn't stop for your personal drama. It rewards the people who show up. I arrived at the office at 8:30 a.m. My assistant, Sarah, was already there. She knows the drill. Good morning, Victor, she said. You look rested. I am, I said. Clear my schedule for Tuesday morning. I have a meeting with Holbrook. She raised an eyebrow. You got Sylvia? I got Sylvia, I said. And Sarah? If Paige calls the office line, take a message. Do not put her through. Sarah paused, processed the information, and nodded. She didn't ask why. She's a professional. Understood. I went in my office and closed the door. I sat down and looked at the whiteboard where I map out my quarterly goals. Holbrook was at the top, circled in red. I put a check mark next to it. Below that was another note. Anniversary dinner, 14th. Reservations at Le Bernardin. I picked up the eraser. I wiped it away. One firm stroke. The ink vanished. The board was clean. I sat back and looked at the white space. It wasn't empty. It was potential. It was capacity. Space to work. Space to build. Space to find someone who understands that a fire needs oxygen to burn, and if you try to smother it, you just end up in the dark. I picked up the phone and dialed the next number on my list. This is Victor, I said. Let's talk business.
Thanks for listening.